The first time is the 24th and final episode of season 6 of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by Gary Halvorson and Kenneth Shapiro, and there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And there are some good moments, but I don't like it. I'm really bored of this. I was really desperate for a resolution, and I honestly thought it came so close to delivering that resolution, and I felt let down. I felt very disappointed. I don't think this needs to be carried over into the next season. Maybe it will be phenomenal in the next season, but I'm not holding my breath there. This starts off with Ray and Debra in bed. Ray wants sex, Debra says tomorrow, and he makes her sign a note agreeing to daytime sex. We're then in the kitchen, and this is the next day. Frank comes over with this porcelain thing that they had given to Marie for a present, and Marie is returning it through Frank because she doesn't like it. Obviously, she's only returning it to wind up Debra, to hurt Debra. Debra throws it in the trash and it smashes. It's very violent. And then Ray comes in with his document saying it's daytime, let's do this. And Debra gets really irritable, and she's quite nasty to Ray. But thankfully, she does apologise quite quickly because this isn't Ray's fault. This isn't Ray's fight. There's no reason for her to take it out on him. And Ray also apologises for not reading her signals, for not being able to realise that this wasn't the right time, which is fair enough. I don't blame him, but it was nice of him to say that. And he says to her, was I always this bad with regards to reading signals? And then we have a flashback, and honestly, the flashback, it doesn't make a lot of sense with the whole, was I always this bad at reading signals? I guess it kind of talks a little bit about signals, but it didn't go in the direction I was expecting, and I will, of course, expand on this. So the flashback is Ray in his bedroom, and he's on the phone with Debra. The guys are there as well, and Debra had asked him to pick up a few things, including a candle, and the guys tell Ray that this is the night he's going to have sex with Debra for the first time because she wants a candle. A bit of a reach, but Ray is happy, and Ray actually, this was lovely, Ray said to the guys, when Debra's ready, she'll let me know. And I thought that was setting us up for the main message here, the message that Ray couldn't pick up signals. I thought when Ray went over to Debra's house, which is what happens next, Debra would be giving him all of these signals that she wants to go to bed with him, and Ray wouldn't be picking up on them. That would make perfect sense with the lead-in, with Ray asking, have I always been bad at picking up your signals? So it kind of feels like a really weak transition there. Because what actually happens is Ray goes over to Debra's, and then Marie turns up. And I will say Marie is a delight. Ray is great. Debra seems so much more upbeat and perky, much more than her, shall we say, married self. And I think I really felt like I'd been taken back in time with Debra, with how Patricia Heaton handled the character here. I believed that we'd gone back in time. I just thought it was fabulous. Marie has decided to come over because she'd heard what Ray and the guys had been talking about, and she doesn't want Ray to sleep with Debra outside of wedlock. Not that this is any of her business, but she comes over with a lasagna, and then Frank and Robert turn up, and Father Hubley. And Debra finds out quite quickly why Marie is there, and she asks Marie if Marie doesn't like her, and they have a really, really lovely moment, and it was really moving. And Debra says, I just hope we can always talk like this. Honestly, I got a little bit emotional at that, because what happened? Well, I think it's clear what happened. It's mostly the fact that Marie keeps coming over. She keeps criticising Debra. I do think that while Debra often flies off of the handle and loses her temper too quickly, Marie, in my opinion, is what has driven the biggest wedge between them over time. But that moment was just so sweet, and things could have been so different if they just hadn't moved into the house across the road. And Debra goes back into the house once Marie and the others have left, and she leads Ray into the bedroom. So the whole setting us up saying Ray wasn't good at picking up signals, it was weak. I don't think the story is what it could have been. I think it would have been funnier if it was just Ray not picking up on all of these signals, it would have made so much more sense, and they still could have found a way to bring Marie into the picture anyway. But I will say, I'm glad that there was that conversation between Marie and Debra, because it does give us a really interesting moment. In a moment, we are back to present day. And Ray says to Debra, so you ended up sleeping with me that night because of what my mother said. Which, yeah, is kind of the case. Debra goes over the road and she asks Marie, who is not paying her any attention, to remember the time she tried to stop her and Ray from sleeping together. And she has her back to Debra. She's over the stove. And it seems like for a moment she is thinking about this. And that's it. I wanted her to turn around and hug Debra. That is the resolution, not only that I was hoping for, but that I needed. I am so ready to be done with this story. I don't think they need to drag it out any more than they have done. I am so bored with it. I am desperate to receive that resolution. And that's not what happened. Because Marie turns around. And instead of hugging Debra like I thought she was going to, she says, why would you say tried to stop you? And Marie turns her back on Debra again. And Frank refuses Marie's sauce. She's cooking sauce in a saucepan. And Frank refuses the sauce until she talks to Debra. So Marie dumps the sauce down the sink. And now I think Marie is being ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But then Debra matches her energy and yells at her, this past month of you not talking to me has been the best month of my life. And she storms out and yells up to Ray that she's going for a drive and leaves Ray on his own in the bedroom. They have yet to fulfill this document, this document that Ray had her sign. And I'm ready for this to be over. We came so close to making amends. It was such a sweet moment. The only thing that I like about this is that I cannot remember how it gets resolved. I've seen the show before, but it's been a long, long time since I saw it. This season, and certainly the next season. And I genuinely, at this stage, cannot think of how they're going to find a way to make amends. Maybe they never do. I don't think that's the case. I'm sure I would remember that if that was the case. It's going to be awful if that ends up being the case. But this did not need to be dragged out any further. It's been far too long already. It's not that I'm not looking forward to the next episode, but if it carries beyond the next episode, I am going to be really, really irritated. So there are some good bits here. The flashback was not too bad. The moment where Debra goes over to speak with Marie was so, so lovely. But the disappointment I felt afterwards was so severe that it kind of ruined it. So there are some good moments, but I can't say that I like the episode because I found it to be incredibly frustrating. The first time is on its own, not too bad, but looking at the bigger picture of this overarching narrative, mostly I just feel frustration.